All right, well, welcome everyone. Wanted to hop on this live really quickly to talk about some of the new changes in lending requirements with COVID. So first, just something really quick. If you can hear me, type something in the comments to make sure that everything looks good and sounds good and there's no weird delays or anything like that. So the changes that COVID is causing all across the U.S. economy is wild. And it's affecting mortgages a lot. And I'm seeing this pop up as a thread in the comment section where people are saying, I've been talking with lenders and they're not even giving me a pre-approval unless I have a 680 credit score or a 720 credit score or something like that, even on an FHA loan. So I wanted to clear up a little bit of some of the confusion that's been going on and talk through what's been changing with COVID and with these lender requirements. It's causing a lot of struggles, especially for people who are trying to get pre-approved, right? You're searching things online, looking for guidelines, looking on ways to help you pre-qualify yourself. And then you go and talk to a lender and things are completely different. And that's incredibly frustrating because it's impossible to plan something well if you don't know what the guidelines are. So first, let's talk about credit score requirements. What's changing with credit score requirements because of COVID? So this is all on a lender by lender basis. About 95% of lenders have put on what's called overlays. And an overlay basically means they're adding a new rule to an existing rule. So here's how it works. FHA gives their guidelines for what they say is the minimum credit score. So normally that's a 500 credit score. An overlay is a rule put on top of that to say, well, we know FHA says it's 500, but we're not going to let loans go through unless they have a 680 credit score. So a lot of lenders are raising their minimum credit score up quite a bit. And it's all over, depending on which lender you're working with. Some lenders are raising it up to 680. I know Chase raised theirs up to 700. You have some lenders who only raised it to 620, some lenders who raised it to 640, some who raised it to 680, some who raised it to 700. So it's difficult because you're going to have different lenders who do different things. So this is where you have the advantage of working with somebody like a broker. So I work as a broker, meaning I work with a couple different lenders. So if a loan doesn't work with one lender, I move it to another lender that it does work with. So we do still work with a lender who will go down to a 500 credit score. They don't have these COVID overlays. And the reason why is because they're servicing everything in their own portfolio, meaning they don't have to worry about paying investors back if loans go into forbearance. All right, so, but just keep in mind that even if you're looking at an FHA loan, you have a very real possibility of having a minimum credit score requirement be raised on you, right? So it used to go down to a 500 on FHA. With most lenders, that's just not the case anymore, unless you're working with a broker who's working with lenders who can go down to that range. So if you're at a point where maybe you were pre-approved and now you can't get a loan, or you are looking to get pre-approved, I would talk with a broker, see what options they have available to go down to those credit score ranges. Now, something to keep in mind, though, is that right now we only have one lender that we work with who can go down to a 500 credit score or even a 580. Most lenders aren't even doing a 580 right now. We only have one lender who's doing that. And so they're getting a little backed up because everybody is swarming their loans to them. So they're a little bit slower. So the loan is going to close, but it's going to take patience. So it's something to keep in mind is that if you are trying to get pre-qualified, it might take a little bit longer. If you are trying to close on a home, it's probably going to take a little bit longer than you're used to. So something to keep in mind. Yeah, you said, wow. Yes, wow is exactly how I've been feeling in this market. It's been interesting for sure. So jumping on to reserves and cash needed. Again, all of these are going to be lender by lender issues, but some lenders are requiring reserves, or basically this is just cash left over in your bank account after you close on a home. So if your cash to close on a home was $10,000, reserves means that you need to have money left over in the bank after you spend the $10,000 at the closing table. Why do lenders want this? Because they want to make sure that you can pay your first, your second, your third payment after you close, right? They don't want to see you close on a loan and then immediately go into forbearance. That makes it impossible for them to sell it on a secondary market, meaning that they end up losing money on the loan. So some lenders are requiring this. Again, if you work with a broker, we have one lender that we work with who is not requiring these COVID overlays. And this is not a pitch to work with me. I'm just saying that these options still exist. You can still underwrite to the normal underwriting standards. It's just going to take some patience, and it's going to take a little bit of shopping around to figure out what's going to work. Then finally, moving on to some delays. So we're also seeing significant delays happening with loans. So where a loan normally would take 30 days, it now might take upwards of 45, 60 days. Okay, hopefully not longer than that. And the reason why is because there is delays all over the place. Number one, you have appraisers who are backed up because there was significant refinance volume happening about a month ago. You also have sellers who don't want appraisers to go into a home and running into all sorts of scheduling issues there. You're also having weird delays with things like the IRS. So you have, I was talking with a buyer today. We were trying to get IRS transcripts, and the IRS said they weren't going to give them to us for another 2 weeks. Okay, well, that slows things down quite a bit, right? So you have those issues, and then you have lenders who are just backed up. So either there might be reduced staff, or they're just backed up because they're seeing a lot of loans come in, and that's causing significant delays with loans. So something to be mindful of if you are going through that process. So all in all, just be patient, stay in contact with your loan officer, with your realtor, ask them questions, see if there's anything that they need to help speed along the process for you. Because I guarantee they are working their hardest to close the loan on your behalf. Nobody is sitting around and waiting and not doing their job, right? Maybe some people are, but most people are really trying to close the loan for you. So keep that in mind, be patient, understand that this market is something that nobody has experienced yet, and we're all taking it step by step. And then finally, I've been asked a couple questions about employment after COVID. And a quick note, if you have questions, I'm going to stick around here for a few minutes and answer those questions. So feel free to ask those in the comments. But employment after COVID. So let's say that you've been laid off or you've been furloughed because of COVID. What's going to happen with you being able to purchase a home in the future? So what this is going to look like is probably only a 2-week pay stub with your regular pay again to be able to purchase a home. All right, so you're not going to have to be on the job for 6 months. You're not going to have to be on the job for a year. Most likely, you're only going to have one pay stub to show that you now have regular pay. So that's something to be mindful of. I know some people have been kind of panicking a little bit because they got furloughed and they think, I'm going to have to be on this job for another 6 months to be able to get a home. And that's just not true. So normally what would end up happening is you don't even necessarily have to have that 2-week pay stub to get pre-qualified. You could close or get under contract on a home and then get on your 2 weeks, collect a pay stub, and then close maybe 2 weeks after that. So all in all, this is a very interesting market, something that nobody has really navigated before. And it can be scary and overwhelming, especially, you're out there looking for answers to guidelines and requirements. I think the top 2 videos on my YouTube channel are FHA loan requirements and USDA loan requirements. So it's frustrating when you look at those answers and then you go talk to a lender and they change. So just be mindful that things are changing rapidly. Again, I would suggest talking with a broker who's going to be able to help shop your loan and put it in the right place. So you asked, what's the lowest score needed for an approval with FHA? The absolute bare minimum lowest is a 500 credit score. So anywhere between a 500 credit score and a 579 credit score, you need to put 10% down. So that's the requirement for FHA. If you have a 580 credit score and above, you can do 3.5% down minimum. So, and those scores, again, some lenders are different depending on the overlays that they have. Even in a regular market, there are a lot of lenders who won't go down to a 500. I work with quite a few lenders who don't go down to a 500. They only do a 580. Some only do a 600. Some only do a 640. So it really just depends lender by lender. But based on FHA's rules, they go down to a 500. And so what you would be looking for is a lender who is underwriting directly to FHA's guidelines. And you could just straight up ask a loan officer that. You can say, hey, what underwriting guidelines do you use? Or they, ask them to help shop around lenders for what's going to be the best place to put your loan. That way they can help match you with the best program and the best lender for your unique situation. So great question. Any other questions before I hop off here? Stick around for maybe 5 more minutes-ish. Okay, so Ever J Ever. All right, is it a good time to buy a house, or could the housing price drop in a few months? Oh, that's so hard to answer. If I could answer this question, I would be very wealthy. If I could predict what's going on in the future, if anybody could, that would be, they would be a magic person. So it's really difficult to tell. Here's what I do know is that all the statistics show us that the housing market is still really strong. Home values are still increasing. If we were seeing statistical markers that were showing us that home values were decreasing in the future, then I would say maybe let's see about waiting a little bit. But I just don't see that happening right now. We're still seeing an incredible shortage of homes. So people talk about inventory being low. That just basically means there are a lot of buyers and not a lot of sellers. And when that ends up happening, home values stay up and they continue to increase as long as there's a shortage of homes available. So we're still seeing that happen. We're still seeing a strong seller's market. So I'm expecting that home values are going to continue to increase. I don't expect them to fall out. Depending on how long this pandemic lasts, it's very possible that we could see a recession happen. And that could change housing values. Again, it's so hard to predict, and I don't want to be the one to give you a definitive answer because I don't think that's fair. And I think anybody who tells you a definitive answer on what's going to happen to home prices is somebody that you should probably run away from very quickly. Ultimately, what I would do is purchase a home and try to make the most money possible at the purchase, right? People talk about real estate, getting a good deal is mainly about getting it when you purchase, meaning that you purchased at a good price. So you're going to negotiate maybe with a realtor on finding that good price. And then I would anticipate ways that you can grow the appreciation and the equity in the property by increasing its value. So maybe you do some repairs, maybe you're paying down equity aggressively. That's going to be your best strategy instead of trying to predict home values. Because if I could tell you the answer, I probably wouldn't tell anybody the answer. I would just buy and sell houses myself. Okay, Molly, you asked, hey, is it still true that you must be in the same line of work for at least 2 years? No, not at all. So the 2-year employment requirement is not the same line of work necessarily. So you can change lines of work, but you're going to want to be in there for a reasonable time frame with a very similar income. All right, so there isn't clear guidelines on it necessarily. It mainly is going to be up to an underwriter's discretion. So for instance, let's say, I'm trying to think of a good example here. Let's say you were a nurse and you now are starting a job as a teacher. An underwriter is going to look at that. And if they see you've only been teaching for a month, you're not in that teaching job very long to show stability. But if you were in that teaching job for 6 months and you could show that you had a license to teach, then an underwriter is going to look at that and you're going to have a pretty strong case for having stable employment as a teacher. So it's really how stable can we paint our employment to an underwriter. If we're changing from different lines of work, we want to make sure we can show the underwriter that we have stable employment, that we don't expect to start this teaching job for a month and then all of a sudden it's something that we can't handle. So that's something to keep in mind. And it also depends on how pay is set up. So if your pay is hourly, it's going to be more difficult to paint an image of stability. If you're paid on a salary, then that's easier to paint an image of stability because it's something that's contractual. So hopefully that clears it up a little bit. I know it's a little bit tricky when you're kind of crossing the same lines of work. Something to be mindful of too, and just because I know you've made some comments about possibly being a loan officer, is that if you're changing how you get paid, then that's going to put a big pause on things. So for instance, if you are getting paid like an hourly wage and you switch to a loan officer job where you're getting paid 100% commission, then you're most likely going to need to wait 2 years to be able to use that commission income. So switching from like hourly to commission, or if you're using heavy overtime or bonuses, then you need to be on that job normally for about 2 years, showing those extra types of income to be able to qualify. Okay, so Melissa, you asked, do we still have to purchase points if my middle score is now 667 and fiance 631? It really just depends on the lender. So with a lender is going to use the middle or the lowest middle score, so that 631. With 631s, I'm still seeing points being paid on FHA loans and especially conventional loans. Hopefully that's going to switch here soon. The biggest issue is that we have, I think the last time I saw numbers come out, 10% of FHA and VA loans are in forbearance right now, which means lenders are bleeding cash on FHA and VA loans, which is why they're becoming so expensive, is because you have now 10% of these loans aren't paying anymore. Nobody's paying on 10% of these loans, which is significant. That's millions and millions of dollars each month that lenders are losing money. So that's why they're charging extra amounts on these loans. Rachel, you asked, you're looking to buy in September. Any foresight on the market then? Great question. I would love to be able to give you an answer, but I have no idea. It's so hard to say because we don't know how much longer the effect of this pandemic is going to last. And it's so difficult to tell what the economic impact is going to be, because right now everything is trailing a little bit. So for instance, what we're feeling in the economy right now is the effect of, kind of a month delay. So what's happening right now probably won't be felt in the economy for probably another month. So it's really difficult to tell, because a lot of these changes that are happening are in anticipation of things that will happen, instead of the actual impact right now, if that makes sense. So what I ultimately would do is, instead of letting these external things impact the way that you make a decision moving forward, I would first find, where are you at with your plan right now? If the market was perfect, right? Let's not even say the market was perfect. If the market didn't exist, if there's no such thing as rising and lowering interest rates, rising and lowering prices and demand, if those things didn't exist, where are you at with your buying plan, with your budgeting plan, with your credit plan? I would start there and say, is now a good time to buy a home if everything else was removed? If so, then I would look at purchasing a home. Because the moment that we let these external things impact our internal decisions is where we make really bad emotional choices that we'll probably regret in the future. But if we have a really solid foundation and say, it doesn't matter what's going on, it doesn't matter what interest rates are doing, it doesn't matter what values are doing, it doesn't matter what demand is doing. We have this plan and we're sticking through it. And we have a plan for when obstacles come up. We have a plan for when obstacles go away. That's going to give you the best result for you and your family moving forward. I think, instead of trying to predict the market a little bit, because it is wildly impossible to predict what's going on. Okay, Alexandra, you asked, my husband works hours, used to be 65 hours. Wow, that's a lot. And now 35 hours because of the virus. Will that affect, since we're going to start on Friday with the bank to start the process to get a house loan? Yes. I would let them know as soon as you can, because the bank most likely is going to require you to be qualified based on the 35 hours. And they're most likely going to need a remarkably strong letter from the employer saying that they don't anticipate that he'll be laid off or furloughed completely. Because to a lender, what they're seeing is, okay, somebody had solid employment. Now the employment isn't so solid anymore. Is there a chance that they're going to get laid off in the future? So a lender is probably going to be a little hesitant to want to lend on that. So if there's any way that you guys can qualify with maybe just you on the loan, then that would be the best strategy going forward. But I would absolutely have that conversation right now. Just get it out up front and see what you can do to work on a solution. Worst case scenario, you might have to just wait a little bit until some of this craziness goes away, and then he's back to work at his regular hours. I know it's not the timeline that you're probably looking for, but it might be something that's needed if you can't qualify at the 35 hours. Okay, so Rachel, you also asked, anticipate any credits or such for essential workers. You're a nurse and crossing your fingers. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being out there and helping all of us. I don't see any credits currently. I don't know of that existing right now. That's a fantastic idea, though. I think everything is just happening so fast that nobody's been able to put out any programs or special benefits yet. What I do anticipate is in the next few months, lenders will start probably putting out incentives or programs or special guidelines to kind of cover things like that, especially to cover if anybody had like late payments. I'm sure there's going to be some guidelines coming out kind of explaining how lenders can be more forgiving towards late payments and things like that. That's what I anticipate because this at this point, is a global pandemic. So normally what ends up happening whenever we see a disaster happen is Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, HUD, they start to change their guidelines a little bit to give special consideration to any sort of natural disaster or something that would affect people's finances in really an uncontrollable way. So that's kind of what I'm expecting to happen. It's difficult to say if it will happen. It depends on all the people running these big enterprises. But currently I don't see any credits happening, but I wish. That would be fantastic. All right, so you asked, how do you find your true mortgage credit score? It's, let's see, so many credit score models available. Yes. So great question. Anytime you get a credit score online, it is not going to be your mortgage credit score. All right. So a mortgage credit score is, and I couldn't rattle off the actual scoring models used right now because they're too long for me to memorize. But they're all different versions of scoring models. So the soft pulls that you get online are going to give you an idea of the score. And I like to think of them as they kind of show you the momentum of your score rather than the score itself. So they might not give you the most accurate number, but they show you, is your score increasing? Is it decreasing? It gives you kind of a general idea of where it's at. So in order to find your true mortgage credit score, you have to get it pulled. That is the only way to find your actual true mortgage credit score, is to get your credit pulled by a lender. There's really no other way around it. A soft pull will never show the definitive mortgage credit score. It has to be a hard inquiry. So if you're looking for that number, then just get it pulled by a lender. I have a video talking about how credit pulls affect your mortgage, or affect your credit score, and they only should affect your score by 0 to 5 points. Okay, so it's not going to be a huge hit to get a hard pull. Sometimes I think we think of it as this mythical thing that's going to tear your credit score down. And in that video, I kind of talk about how that myth has come about because of more factors than just the credit pull itself. But the credit pull alone is only going to change your score by 0 to 5 points max. So I would just have it pulled. Talk with a mortgage broker if you want to know where your score is at and what you need to do to get it increased. Or if you're at a range, if you're on Credit Karma and it's a 680 and you're saying, hey, I'm looking to buy a house in 6 months, don't get it pulled now. Just continue to work on building your credit score up. There's no need to have that exact number necessarily. Cool. Let me make sure I got everything else in here. Man, I need to take a breath when I talk. Okay, so Molly, you said somebody asked a question about mortgage credit score. Okay, cool. Cool, that was the same question. Awesome. Yeah, and so Just Phil, you said use Experian or MyFICO. Yep. So those are both soft credit score credit reports. I'm losing track of my thoughts here. And they're going to give you a good indicator, just like something like Credit Karma would. They're going to give you their own scoring model to use. It's not going to be the exact scoring model used on a mortgage credit report, but it's going to be very close. It's going to give you a really solid idea of where your score is at. And I think more important than the score too is also keeping in mind that all of these reports show you where your credit's at. So they're going to show you how old your accounts are. They're going to show you how much utilization you have, any missed payments you have. These are things that you can all begin working on. It's easy to just focus on the score and think about the score. How do we increase the score? But the score is made up of the report. So if we do work on the report, the score is going to increase. So there's not like magic things that we can do necessarily to increase the score. We have to work on the whole rest of the report. Okay, so you asked, with a 0% down loan, could at some point we put equity in the home? Absolutely, that's a fantastic idea. So when you close on a home, you're going to get a loan estimate. And that loan estimate on page 1, kind of like halfway down that page, is going to say prepayment penalty. And then there's going to be a box to the right of that that says yes or no. You want that to say no. And most loans don't have a prepayment penalty. Basically what that means to not have a prepayment penalty is that you can prepay that loan with no cost and no fees. So most loans are set up this way. And that means you can put in as much money into the equity as you want with no additional charges. Or you could pay off the loan tomorrow without any extra charges, which is fantastic. So what always scares me with 0% down loans is when people don't want to put any equity into the home, because here's my biggest fear, and this happens a lot for people, is that let's say you purchase a home and this home costs, let's say, $200,000. So it's right here. All right. So then 3 years passes. You did 0% down, 3 years passes. And let's say the home value, maybe it didn't really change that much. Okay. Maybe it went up and down, and maybe over 3 years, we didn't see much of a change, or worse, we saw a decline in value. So then if you go to look to sell your property in 3 years, you have zero equity to be able to sell your home. So if you're in a pinch, you probably have to bring money to the closing table, which can be really difficult, especially if you're in some hardship or you are in a job transition, you're not able to sell the home. So putting in equity into your house is a really great way to make sure that you have, a portion of your wealth and your net worth tied up in an appreciating asset over a long period of time. So it always scares me when people do 0% down and they don't put equity in. So absolutely, if you do 0% down, I think that's great. You're going to have a nice little nest egg of cash left over in case you need repairs or furniture or paint. But absolutely put some equity into the home. It doesn't have to be a big lump sum. If you want, you could say, make your regular mortgage payment and then $200 extra a month goes to the principal. It's a great way to pay the equity down. Alrighty, Alexander, you said thanks for the response and thank you for your question. I appreciate it. All right, my email is lighting up over there for a second. Okay, Experian is about 640. Cool. So you're looking to buy a house with an FHA loan. What are some do's and don'ts to start the process? There are probably a good amount of do's and don'ts. Where I would first start with starting the process on an FHA loan is, first of all, I would just go interview a couple different loan officers. So when people interview loan officers, they normally do this kind of wrong. They normally just call and say, hey, what's your rate? Which is not a very good question, because a loan officer who's just going to tell you the rate over the phone without knowing any information that you have is probably not a loan officer you want to work with. So what I would do is I would interview a loan officer and ask questions about who they are, about working with them, about working with their company, about what the process is like. You want a loan officer who's going to have the heart of a teacher and guide you through the process. So I would first talk with a couple different loan officers, find one that you're comfortable with, and then start the pre-qualification process. Because a loan officer who has the heart of a teacher is going to help you understand what you need to work on if you're not ready to purchase a home right now. So since your credit score is 640, you shouldn't have an issue with your credit. But let's say you have an issue with a debt to income ratio or down payment or something like that, then starting the process to get pre-qualified now means a lender can help you understand, hey, this is what you can qualify for now, or maybe here are some things that you need to work on in the future. Really, that's the best place to start. They can give you a good game plan moving forward. And then after you're pre-qualified, you can then talk with a realtor to start shopping for homes. All right. I'm going to hang on here for about, let's say 5 more minutes. Let's see, you said thank you for responding. You are very welcome. Thanks for your comment. Man, I need to not drink tea during these lives. It really dries out my mouth a little bit. So Mindy, you asked, what is a USDA loan? A USDA loan is a loan guaranteed by the government. So basically allows you to do 0% down, which is fantastic. And they are for purchasing homes in what they call rural areas. So rural areas are actually more inclusive than it sounds. I'm going to send a link here in the comments. What you can do is click on that link, type in the address of a property that you're looking for, and it's going to show you a map of what's USDA eligible and what's not. But USDA allows you to purchase with 0% down. They want you to purchase homes that are kind of move-in ready, so they don't really like fixer-uppers that much. But they're also going to have low-cost mortgage insurance, and their rates are going to be really low as well. USDA loans go down to a 550 credit score, which is fantastic. But they can be a little harder to qualify for because they have an income limit of everybody in the household, not just the buyer. Everybody in the household falls under the income limit. So something to be mindful of. They're fantastic loans, though. Vinny, you said you're going to recommend my channel to your circle. I really appreciate it, man. Okay, so Tracy, you said I co-signed for my kid's car. Hard inquiries brought down all my scores, and looking for apartments gave me additional hard inquiries. I feel like this has messed up my plans. That's a bummer. So, yeah, co-signing can definitely bring down your score. And most likely what happened is it's not the inquiries that change your score. And I have a video talking about this. It's the inquiries didn't change the score as much as a new account changed the score. So not only did you decrease the average age of your accounts on your credit, but you also increased your credit utilization. You brought in an installment account that has 100% usage. So if the car was $10,000, you're now using $10,000. So you're at 100% utilization, which is taking the score down. So it's not the inquiries, it's actually the account that has taken that down. Something you could do is possibly look at seeing if you could refinance, or maybe find the steps that your child needs to be able to put the car in just their name, and then refinance that just into their name to help take that off. I really hate that apartments do hard inquiries. I feel like that's so unnecessary. They could just do a soft pull and get all the information. So that's a bit of a bummer. Inquiries are going to kind of start dropping off of your credit report after 120 days. And then the weight of those inquiries are going to drop off sooner. So what I would do is maybe hold out for a couple months, see if you can refinance that car. And I really would be curious to see what your score actually is on a mortgage credit report. Sometimes things like Credit Karma can act like the sky's falling down because they're running off of kind of, it's a software. So they see a credit pull and then they just shoot out an auto email that says your score dropped 5 points. And then something else happens and they shoot out another auto email, and they keep sending out these emails. And, frankly, fear is a really great marketing tactic. It's something that keeps you hooked and keeps you coming back. And I think they do a really good job at kind of preying off of credit fear. So if you're getting that information from those sites, then I don't know that it's fully the most reputable source. Personally, I would talk with a mortgage broker, one who can do a soft pull for you that won't impact your credit score, and then ask them to see, hey, where's your score at? What things need to be worked on in the next couple months so you can have a really solid plan moving forward. All right, so you asked, once you have a first home via FHA loan, how easy is it to purchase a second home? So do you mean a second home as in like an actual second home, like you'll have two homes at the same time, like one home and a vacation home? Or do you mean selling the first one and purchasing another one? Because they're kind of a little bit different there. But I'm guessing what you're meaning is maybe having one home, selling it, and then purchasing another one. If that's the case, then it really isn't super difficult. You would just talk with your loan officer and how you're going to line those up. Sometimes people are able to put both of those mortgage payments in their debt to income ratio, and sometimes you can't, meaning that you have to write a contingent offer where you have to sell the home first and then purchase a home. And you can normally do those simultaneously. So they're kind of like back-to-back closings. So you sell, and then maybe the next day you purchase. If you're talking about like an actual second home, kind of like a vacation home, then you would need to purchase that with a conventional loan. And, rental property. Okay, so rental property is different. So a rental property is instead not classified as a second home, but as an investment property. So an investment property has a minimum of 15% down. And that has to be a conventional loan. You can't use an FHA loan or USDA or VA to purchase a investment property. So what the lender will do is most likely use the future income from that property to help you qualify for. But you'll need a credit score of at least a 620 to qualify on conventional. And for the best chances of qualifying, you'll want over a 680 for those best chances. Okay, so Anna, you asked if you qualify for a conventional loan and a USDA loan, which is better. You heard you have to pay back subsidized interest on USDA if your income increases. Is that accurate? I have not heard that. I am going to look into that. USDA subsidized interest if income increases. I have not heard of that, but it's absolutely something that I'm going to look into. As far as which is better, conventional versus USDA, on the face value, it's difficult to say which is better. What I would do is compare the two. Have your loan officer compare the two. So we use a software called Mortgage Coach, and basically what it does is it takes each loan, puts it side by side, and shows you the loans compared to each other. And so it will show you like over 5 years, this is how much, or this is how cheap, or this is your cheapest loan option. Over 15 years, what's your cheapest loan option? But on the face value, it's really difficult to say that, a conventional is better than USDA or USDA is better than conventional. It really just depends on a lot of different factors. Conventional loans will allow you to purchase more properties than USDA does. That is the biggest benefit. With conventional, you don't really have restrictions on where you can buy. With USDA, you have a lot of restrictions on where you can buy, which is a really big bummer. Also conventional, you're going to have more equity in the house because you need to put anywhere from 3 to 5% down as a minimum down payment, where USDA is 0%. So having that equity in the house is probably going to put you in a better financial position than USDA might. I am very curious to look into this interest subsidy thing though. Okay, so you asked, my middle credit score is 656. You're interested in FHA loan. Paid off some things on my credit and debt ratio is 31, and you want to stay in budget of a $200,000 price of home. And are you in a good place to start? Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. So you have a 656, which is fantastic. You're probably going to get a nice rate on an FHA loan. I would expect you're probably going to be around a mid 3% score. So you paid off some things with your credit and debt ratio is 31. A 31% debt ratio is fantastic. FHA allows you to go up to 55%. So you're good there. And if you know that your budget you're budgeting for a $200,000 house and that fits in your budget, that's fantastic for you. So I think you're in a fantastic place to start. The next step for you is to go shop a mortgage. Go look at interest rates and payments and total cash to close and all the costs involved to see if it's going to be a good option for you and which company you want to work with. Cool. Well, thank you all so much for sticking around. I am going to jump off here and relax a little bit tonight. Today's been a bit of a long day, but if you guys have questions, let me know. I am going to be working on an FHA 203K video coming up here shortly, hopefully putting this out soon. But if you have questions, comment on any of the videos. I reply to every single comment, and I just might turn your comment into a video. So thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Have a wonderful night. Stay safe and well, and I'll talk to you soon.